You get plenty of coverage of Oklahoma State football. You think you hear all the noise coming from Gallagher-Iba Arena when you get your Cowboy basketball news. But you don't.
You just don't get it, Weir. You don't.
And there's a couple of Jordans here to fix just that. This is the Cowgirl Coverage Podcast.
This could be a podcast. Anyone with a computer can make one.
Here are your hosts, Jordan Keene and Jordan Bishop.
Welcome in, Cowgirl Coverage Podcast from Play Sports Podcast Network. Jordan and Jordan with you, as always, episode 26. Glad to have you along, and we really appreciate all the support we've gotten. Did not have a guest on the last episode, but still up around that 30, 35 view mark. So we appreciate everyone that does tune in for these, and hopefully we gave you a worthwhile update, updating mostly softball last week, but also some women's golf news as well. Episode 27, coming up a little bit later this week, is also going to be featured pretty much solely on women's golf because we're finally going to get to talk to Coach Greg Robertson. Really excited to get out there to Karsten and have a conversation with he and Alan Bratton and kind of see how that partnership is kind of rejoined now on different sides of the hallway, so to speak, but both out there trying to do the same thing, and that's be successful in national championships, something that he was on the verge of doing at Kent State, and hopefully now at Oklahoma State we'll be able to do that, Jordan. But still, we'll kind of break down what he has coming back, what he's got coming in, and kind of what we hear from him coming up tomorrow or Monday out at Karsten Creek.
Yeah, the past couple of weeks we haven't had a guest. It's been, stuff has fallen through, but finally we get Coach Robertson, and hopefully we can get back on the train of getting guests each week. But I'm really excited to get to talk to him. We've been wanting to talk to him ever since that was announced early May. That was at the softball Big 12 tournament when we heard about the news. Whenever we heard about the news that they were going to get a new coach, and then we got his hire right around the end of May. So we've been wanting to talk to him for about a month now, so hopefully we'll see what he has to say and what he's planning on doing with the talented class he has coming in.
No doubt about it. Looking forward to that. That'll be episode 27. This is episode 26. We're going to focus on a couple of different sports here. A lot of women's basketball news breaking here in the month of June, so we want to kind of recap what we've seen from this month. Late signing period was very kind to Coach Littell, Coach Annan, and that whole coaching staff, so we'll talk about that coming up. But we're going to start here in softball. Softball is a sport that is mirroring the NFL around here because, the one thing the NFL always gets good pub for is that it finds a way to always be in the headlines. It always finds we always during the NBA finals somehow an NFL story will break and it'll find itself in the news cycle, and I think it's something a lot of people always are like, that's really impressive. Cowgirl Softball has found a way to do that in the Stillwater news cycle recently, really the state's news cycle, and to a certain respect the national softball news cycle. They've stayed near the top of it, and after signing Haley Busby right after the appearance at the World Series, and then signing Coach Bargfeld. This is a team that has kind of stayed in the headlines, and does so again, perhaps with the biggest pickup. Now, the Bargfeld one is probably going to be tough to match overall, but getting Carrie Eberle, the ACC Pitcher of the Year last year, over a pitcher like Megan King, who we saw a lot of last year at the Super Regional round, this is a huge pickup.
Yeah, I think this is showing a signs that Kenny Gajewski is going for a national championship. But you can talk to anybody. You can talk to, Wisconsin State. I don't even know if there is a Wisconsin State. But they're going to say at the beginning of the year, well, we're going for a national championship. But you can't – nobody really has – there are only a select few teams, about 5 teams, have the tools to get a national championship. And that's what Kenny Gajewski is trying to put his team in that mix to where they're going to be in the semifinals, and hopefully they can play themselves into the finals of the World Series and maybe come out with the title. And he's making those moves, getting Coach Bargfeld, Haley Busby's going to be fitting right in for Macy Montgomery. And that Carrie Eberle, who I know you're only going to have for 1 year, but we saw what Samantha Shaw did with it just 1 year. So I think adding her to your pitching staff when you already have one of the best pitching coaches now in the country is a win-win.
When you look at this pitching staff, I want to kind of talk about this because people that are viewing this get to see what Eberle brings to the table, and that is a pitcher who generally pitches to contact, but has only given up 13 home runs and faced like 3,200 batters in her career, 2,300, one of those two. But she's faced well over 2,000 batters in her career, only giving up 13 home runs. That's a number that is kind of mind-boggling to me when you look at her stat sheet. But 25-8, 1.84 ERA, softball pitcher of the year in the ACC conference. Not the best conference in the world, but I would say top to bottom, maybe comparable, maybe a little bit weaker than the Big 12, but still, there are some teams in the Big 12 that you can dominate, a lot like in the ACC, but you're also going to play some of the best teams in the country.
Yeah, 13 home runs given up. Just to give perspective, Busby, same conference, had 11 home runs last year. So that's incredible. You're going to be playing in a tough conference that has your OUs that like to hit home runs, obviously, and your Texases that can hit the long ball too. So it's going to be a bit of an adjustment going from the ACC to the Big 12. Overall, I think she's going to do well. I think, we talked about her strikeout to walk ratio is what, 2-1?
Yeah, about 2-1.
I think, I don't know if it's going to improve. I mean, that's the thing about this. Is we talked about this on the radio yesterday. When Samantha Shaw came here, nobody really knew about her. But she came in here, she improved herself. And I think a lot of transfers are seeing that. We talked about that before. But maybe she can improve her numbers as well. I mean, overall, I think she's wanted to come here to improve her overall college experience maybe. I don't know. We'll find out the story whenever she gets into town. But maybe she can improve that number. It's not a terrible number, but you want to improve it. But that 1.84 ERA is the number you want to look at.
No doubt about it. That 1.84 ERA would have ranked best on the team for Oklahoma State last year. And just to put it into perspective on something that Oklahoma State fans might already know, that 2-1 strikeout to walk ratio was better than Shao's this year, and Shao had a pretty darn good season. So it's something that you can survive with. She doesn't have just dominating, kind of pulsating stuff. She just has stuff that's going to get outs, which is all you really need. Something that Coach Bargfeld obviously wants. You just go out there, get outs, roll right along, don't throw too many pitches. But I think the nice thing is you still have a pitching staff behind her that if Gabby Sprang can take the next step, if Logan Simonek can figure it out, or just be that shutdown player in the bullpen, man, this pitching staff is going to be really good. And then you have the question mark of Kelly Maxwell coming off the red shirt, a couple of top 100 recruits coming in on the pitching side as well. So I think the ingredients that are there for this to be a dominant pitching staff. I don't think it's going to be like G. Juarez and Mariah Lopez last year and then Sale coming in as their number 4. I don't know if it's going to be like that, but I think it can be really strong because, quite frankly, the pitching staff that OU had was something that you generally don't see, right? And that's part of the reason Mariah Lopez is leaving. We'll get to that in just a second. But that 13 home run number, just to go back to that, during the Super Regional round, ESPN made so much. They made no bones about how good of an offensive team Florida State was, and I'd be interested to see how many of those came from Florida State. But that was a lineup that 1 through 9 could hit the ball over the fence. So she will have faced some of that. Like you said, I think the Big 12 is a little bit better of an offensive conference overall. But I think that'll be kind of an interesting dynamic to bring into Cowgirl Stadium, because I think Cowgirl Stadium lends itself to home runs being hit sometimes when the wind starts to blow out and you hit pop flies and you end up with a 13-11 game like you did against Tulsa. So, I mean, I think it, without trying to overhype her, I think the home run numbers could maybe go up. But if that ERA sits where it was, like I said, she would have been the best ERA or best pitcher on the staff per ERA last season. Yeah,
and just the pitching has been the problem for Coach Gajewski since he came here. He's always had a good transfer come in here, but now it seems like with Coach Bargfeld, he actually has a staff that's that can scare some people. And Logan Simonek, I think, can be your Paige Lowry type. I mean, they had for OU for years was running out the Paige Parker. She's going to throw the first 4 innings, and Lowry's going to throw the last 3 and shut them down. I think you can have Logan Simonek come do that role for you. I think this is what separates you from being that 6 through 15 team to being a 1 through 5 team. And I hope that Eberle just fits right in. I have no doubt she will. We'll see how it goes in the fall ball first when we see her. But then I think it's a pickup that is going to make waves across the whole softball world.
From the Hokies to the Pokies, that's what I'm calling it. But she joins it, and again, that could be a really dynamic staff when you talk about. I want to talk about. We don't talk. This is the Cowgirl Coverage podcast. This is not the OU Coverage podcast. But I think it's worth noting for Cowgirl fans that maybe haven't heard now. I think a lot of people have. It's ever since the Softball America website has started keeping track of transfers pretty religiously and done a good job with it as well. Ever since that started, I think a lot of people found out Mariah Lopez, whether she was unhappy. I think I saw a quote from Gasso saying maybe she wants to be the face of a program, which she was not going to be at OU, quite frankly. Going after her sophomore year, she went 14-0 her sophomore year. As you said, sat behind Paige Parker, Paige Lowry. Her time was coming. It just seemed like she was the next one because it was like, man, you got these two really good, seniors, but you also got Mariah Lopez back. Like, the embarrassment of riches was kind of what it was for Gasso and OU. And then you get to this, and she gets to her junior year. She's supposed to be the ace, the face of the program, and they bring in G. Juarez as a transfer. And it worked out well for OU. G. Juarez goes whatever it was, 22-0 in the regular season, picks up a couple of crucial losses in the postseason, and they don't win a national title. But I think if Mariah Lopez, if that's the case, if she got a little bit angry, I think she has a little bit of a case because going 14-0, perfect as a sophomore, only lost 2 games in your entire 3-year career there. Like, you expect to be the face of the program, and she just wasn't.
Yeah, and that's something we talk about with. When Oklahoma State's getting all these transfers in, when's do transfers going to come out? And it's a very difficult situation because you have to make sure everyone gets playing time. And, Mariah Lopez, I would be a bit mad, too. I assume that's why she's, wanting out because she was next up and then she got replaced. So I'll be interested in seeing where she goes. It's going to be a big school. It's not going to be some D2 school. She's going to Arizona. Wow. So, okay.
Yeah, so I mean that is for Arizona. That's a big pickup because again, I believe they graduated their ace this year, didn't they?
Yeah, I think they did.
Yeah, so I mean Arizona, a team who was in that Final Six, and really played well down the stretch, played well at the World Series. I mean now it's an arms race over there. You got to compete with UCLA. You got to compete with Oregon because Oregon's probably going to bounce back a little bit, even though for the second straight year they have more players entering the transfer portal. But I don't think they're quite the Miranda Ellishes of the world. So I don't think it's that type of quality for Oregon that they're losing, but they lose 3 more players. But for OU, and then for Arizona to pick up Mariah Lopez, that's huge. The other 2 for OU that they're losing, Parker Conrad has kind of been that 4th pitcher on the staff for a really long time. She's just probably going to go for her senior year to try to fit in somewhere and probably a little bit lower of a level of a level for that. But Alexa Schultz from OU, she's played in 81 games. Really, I think only started a handful of them, mostly pinch runner, kind of think Shaylee Brantley for Oklahoma State or something like that early on in her career. So I don't know if she would have slotted in as a key contributor for OU, but to this point in her career, really just kind of a speed athlete, just pinch hit, pinch run, go into the field for defense late in the game. So outside of Mariah Lopez, not any huge transfer outs for Oklahoma, but that is losing Mariah Lopez is a big deal.
Yeah, and just want to throw in those Oregon players aren't going to Texas, so
there you go.
Just a jab at Mike White there. So, but Oklahoma, they're gonna be good. Mariah Lopez leaving isn't going to hurt them. I want to say it will, but it won't.
Yeah, no, you always wish, but Texas Tech is the only other one that's losing a really good player. Brooke Blackwell, who I thought had a pretty good year last year for them, is transferring to Texas State. So she didn't like it. I'm not really sure what the situation was there down in Lubbock, but they lose her to the transfer portal. Again, just kind of searching through. You got to go all the way to the bottom to find the 2 that are coming to OSU because both went to V schools, Virginia and Virginia Tech. But yeah, I mean, it's just you see this list and how expansive it is. It's crazy not to see someone from Oklahoma State in the transfer portal, isn't it?
Yeah, and it all depends on the type of players you get, and you have to make sure that they know up front what's expected of them. And I think they do. The one hard problem for me, maybe in future years, is Kenny has relied so much on transfers coming in, and it's been good for both sides. But that might alienate somebody like maybe a Kelly Maxwell in the future, somebody who waits a while, doesn't get much playing time. They might want to go somewhere else. That's the only problem I see in the future. Maybe as pitchers, if you keep bringing in transfers instead of using your homegrown players, if you will.
Yeah, that's kind of what every player's or coach is dealing with, because a lot of really good players that you want to take advantage of on the portal, but you also got to make sure that you respect the players that are in your program. So there you go. There was some good talk there on Cowgirl Softball, and it's just like I said, it seems like they're in the news every week, and all of it's right now good stuff. So hopefully that trend continues. Hopefully it doesn't head in the wrong direction. But Coach Gajewski's doing a phenomenal job with that so far.
Oh, definitely. Like you mentioned, it's become a year-round just news cycle for softball, and that's why I'm excited for fall softball. But first, we have soccer coming up, and then we have Cowgirl Basketball news, which really we haven't talked about since the season ended, except for Braxton Miller and Jaden Hodge transferring, because it wasn't a season to remember. So just it's good to see some good news coming out of there finally in the off season, because usually it's just a dead time for basketball.
Yeah, this is the late signing period. Like I said, the late signing period was very kind to Oklahoma State's coaching staff. The late signing period, they picked up Natasha Mack, the 2019 JUCO Player of the Year. I'll flash up the 2019 signing class. I'll leave this up there for a while. A lot of information to take in here. But Natasha Mack, Micah Dennis, and Lauren Fields, that trio looks like they are players that can come in and have an immediate impact right away for this team. Natasha Mack, the 2019 JUCO Player of the Year. Micah Dennis, the 2019 Girls Canadian Player of the Year, so the high school Player of the Year in the nation, in Canada. And then Lauren Fields, the Oklahoma Girls Basketball Coaches Association All-State Team Player. And she was down from Shawnee, and 4-star recruit based on some. I think ESPN had her as a high 3-star, a lot like Kennedy Jackson that we'll talk about in just a little bit. But this late signing period, just especially that, has been just phenomenal. Getting Mack, Dennis, and Fields, Jordan.
Yeah, with the amount of holes you're trying to fill there, not only having Miller and Hobbs transfer, but overall just. It's been the cupboard's been bare for a while. If you want to say that, that's why I think Coach Ottell was reluctant to use bench players last year because he didn't know if he had much. So I think adding this overall, the amount of talent you have coming in this, it shows that he wants to get back to making a Sweet 16. He wants to be back to that sort of program, because it's fallen off the past 5 years. So he wants to get back to that level, and this is a program a recruiting class that says that.
Yeah, and again, let's get to the rest of the recruiting class, because obviously the big three that you get in the late signing period is important. But we had associate head coach Bill Annan on the podcast before they knew about Mack, Dennis, or Fields, and he was pretty excited about the three that they had in Begay Sar. She's from over in Georgia, I think, right? She went to JUCO player from Georgia, South Georgia Tech. And then Kennedy Jackson, she's from New Orleans, kind of a 6'4" post player, I believe, 19th ranked post player per ESPN. And then Sarah Rodriguez, who Coach Annan was very happy about and very excited about her coming in. She's from down in Brazil. I mean, I did all I could. I had to change the font size a little bit to fit all of her statistics, her per-game statistics on there. 20 points, 15 boards, 6 assists, 2.1 steals, 4 blocks. I mean, we could see a quadruple-double. No, just kidding. But, no, this is someone who seems like a little bit of a combo guard type of deal. Could probably play some post if he absolutely needed it from her, but gets a lot of boards. Crashes the glass. She's still got the passing, the great array of passing, and can put the ball in the hole, which I think is very important. And probably going to, if she ends up playing a lot of minutes, might slot in as like your Braxton Miller type, except for hopefully needs a few less shots to get the points that Braxton did, because we know that Vivian Gray is a volume shooter. You got to kind of have some efficiency elsewhere on the court. Yeah,
and the fact that she's so athletic and can play around the rim too, like Coach Annan said, that's outstanding for her. And I think I'm most excited. This is a great class. I'm most excited for Rodriguez, just based on what Coach Ann said. And just hearing you told me a couple weeks ago she was on an interview and she said she wanted to be a coroner. That's what she wanted to be whenever she wanted to be a professional. I was like, that's interesting. So it's just, I'm excited for her. It looks like she has, was listening to her interview, she has a good personality. But yeah, it's been hard to get excited about Cowgirl basketball with how this last season went. You have Vivian Gray obviously come back, who's could be in talks for player of the year for the conference. And then you have Cassie DeLapp, Jamie Asbury, Bryn Gerlich, those type of players, Miriam Nanu. But it just was hard to get excited. Now you can get really excited, and I know it's going to be tough. We talked before about their first couple of weeks, and they're going to tournaments, but it's going to be tough. But it's exciting that, hey, we have something to be talking about with Cowgirl basketball.
Yeah, it definitely is, and obviously there is something to the hype surrounding Sarah Rodriguez. Certainly, Kennedy Jackson led her team to multiple state championships. She's won a lot. Natasha Mack, we know she was someone that won a lot at the JUCO level as well. 24 points a game. That is unbelievable to be bringing in 4 recruits that are all north of that 15 point per game mark. Begay Sarr, also from the Senegal. That's originally from the Senegal. That's what I was. I couldn't remember where she was originally from, but that is where. So yeah, 6 players. A lot like the men's team, kind of have to fill some holes. You lost some seniors. Seniors that maybe didn't contribute as much as you would have liked, but still provide open scholarships. And looks like, this time around, pretty strong recruiting class for this coaching staff. Just want to remind everyone, you mentioned the tough schedule coming up early on in the season. Now, they play a few cupcakes, as every team does early on in the season, but then they go down to the U.S. Virgin Islands Paradise Jam the weekend. I believe this is a Thanksgiving weekend. And man, could have a lot to be thankful for if on Thanksgiving you can knock off Sabrina Ionescu, Oregon, and that tough team. Has a chance at that point in the season, Jordan, to be ranked number 1 in the country, and could have a huge target on their back when they go down to the Paradise Jam down there at the U.S. Virgin Islands.
Yeah, that'd be the biggest win in program history because they beat a number 1 team before in Baylor. That's conference play, and talk about Oklahoma State men's beating Kansas. Yeah, it's big. You usually do every year, but it's conference play. It's something about beating those non-conference teams, those Oregons. A UConn, a Louisville, that just really speaks to the whole nation that, oh, wow, who's this Oklahoma State team? So that would be big if they make the noise or even played them close to within, 5 points. That'd be a big move. Yeah,
I think, when we did our bracket challenge, you talked a lot about these 2 teams specifically. You were a big Oregon fan, Sabrina Ionescu, probably going to be the player of the year next year, probably. Some had her as player of the year this year, but although most, ended up going to Megan Gustafson. I think Ionescu's got a great chance next season. So Louisville's another team. So if you don't get that one, well, Louisville, a team who probably expected to be in the championship game. They get knocked out in the Elite Eight, and still a really, really good team, although I believe they lose Asia Wilson.
Asia Durr, yes.
Asia Durr, yes.
Yeah, they do. I picked them to win the national championship last year. My bracket did not go well at all. I had Baylor losing in the Sweet 16. So, but yeah, it's you can't win for losing. I guess I think that's the term, because if they lose the Oregon, they're like, okay, then they have to go against Louisville, and then they have to go against UT Arlington, which is a team that is really good. Bryn Gerlich's mom is the coach over there, and they're a good mid-major team. So you want to make sure you at least win one. It's gonna be tough though. Tough sled.
Well, as I said yesterday, Jordan. Technically, UT Arlington was a better team than you last year. UT Arlington makes it to the second round of the NIT. You didn't even go to the NIT. So technically, heading into the season, now I think you got a few better recruits than UT Arlington did this year, and I think you have better players overall than UT Arlington does. But, going into it, you could conceivably think that UT Arlington is the favorite in that game. I don't think they are, but I could understand why someone said, well, yeah, UT Arlington's a better team because that's how it went last year. And if you really didn't pay attention to women's college basketball, I understand how you could potentially think that. But that is a tough 3-game schedule down there at the Virgin Islands, and then you come back to the States, barely make it back to Oklahoma, and you got to start heading south down to College Station. The next weekend, that Saturday, you go to Texas A&M for the Big 12 SEC Challenge, and my goodness, it seems like you have just gotten the worst shake of this Big 12 SEC Challenge. Talk about Tennessee, talk about South Carolina, talk about Mississippi State. You are playing the best teams from this freaking SEC conference. When are you going to get a break from this? But, again, going to help the RPI.
Yeah, definitely. And that's what, it's going to be tough. But this is something we've been asking for a while from Cowgirl Basketball. We wanted them to play, some big names. I know Tennessee, they've done in the past, South Carolina, Mississippi State. But we wanted a well-rounded conference slate or a non-conference slate, because when it happens, you get to RPI, I think a couple years ago, when they made the second round of the tournament. They beat Syracuse that first game, but they were afraid they weren't going to get in. They finished third in the conference that year. They were afraid they weren't going to get in because the RPI was so low, because the non-conference was so low. So I think, playing this, even if they do lose these games, helps out your overall RPI for when it comes to the time to go to March.
Yeah, you cannot have a non-conference schedule. Like, if you take out these games, it's Emporia State home, Idaho home, Lamar home, at Tulsa, Idaho State home. I mean, you're making the rounds, bringing all the Idaho teams down here. Rice University is not very good. Now, they might have made the tournament last year.
They made a run last year. They got that girl from OU, the Malky girl, who was really good. She's like 6'5", so and she turned out to be very good down there. So yeah, there could be a team that could scare you.
And I believe they might have knocked off Marquette, so I might have to give Rice a lot of credit there. Southern University, Oral Roberts, and Duquesne. That is the non-conference schedule for Oklahoma State. So if you, to your point, with that, if you only have a Texas A&M on the schedule, yes, that Texas A&M boosts your RPI, but the rest of this is just not a very attractive non-conference schedule when your only road game outside of Texas A&M is Tulsa. And then the neutral site games against those other really big three teams. So, yeah, their RPI should be good. The non-conference strength of schedule should be good this year. I think the Big 12 will still be quality enough to continue to bolster up that RPI as well. So, from a strength of schedule point of view, not a problem this year. But you still got to win these games. Outside of the 3-game trip, I'm with you. I think you got to go 1-2 down at the Virgin Islands. Outside of that, I think you have to win every single game but one. I think you're afforded losing that Texas A&M game. I think you got to win the other games. And if you do that, you're going to put yourself in a good position heading into conference play, hopefully with a little bit of consistency, hopefully a little bit of confidence. And if you do that, I think you're going to have a chance going into Big 12 play.
Yeah, the only ones I worry about outside of Texas A&M is that Rice game, just because how good they did last year, and Oral Roberts. I know I think it blew them out of the water last year. It was the game where they had like 42 points at halftime, something like that. The Cowgirls did. But it's a team that's scary. They got a good coach over there. So it's something like if you're not paying attention, you're looking ahead to conference play, they could trip you up.
Yeah, definitely. Nice to have those 2 games at home, certainly. So, yeah, again, it's just a lot of home games, a lot of games played in GIA there in the non-conference next year, and a lot of them kind of pushover games, so you should expect to, number 1, win them. Number 2, win them convincingly. Number 3, get a lot of players on the court and see what you got depth-wise before you get into Big 12 play, because that's going to be crucial. You can't have Vivian Gray playing a million minutes every single game. That I think I'm not alone in that. We are 48 days from today, Saturday, June 29th. We are 48 days from the kickoff of the women's soccer team. I know you mentioned it. That's what we got first of all. And really, it's actually it is the next game for any Oklahoma State sport. They play Tulsa August 16th. It's a Friday before all hell breaks loose with the football schedule. They get one Friday in here for hopefully everyone to go out there. Hopefully a packed stadium, a Friday night, Tulsa, in-state rivalry. Hopefully Tulsa brings some fans over and just creates a really cool atmosphere to kick off Oklahoma State athletics next year.
Yeah, that'd be cool. It was kind of like last year having OU to open up Patterson Stadium, and even then it wasn't fully done. And we talked to Coach Carmichael earlier in the year. Hopefully it's done. That fully, that they have the locker rooms, all the amenities are there, because I really want to see how this stadium looks, and I really want to see how this team looks with all the new faces they have as well, and hopefully they're going to be riding the high, and they start off this year with a bang, and they just keep running that.
No doubt about it. I know we're going to probably try to talk to some soccer players here before the season gets rolling as well, so looking forward to that. Just a reminder to everyone, in case you were wondering what the first 6 or so games looks like for this team. Again, Tulsa got that early August game. They had on the road for 3 games, a couple down in Beaumont at Lamar, and then a neutral site again in Beaumont against San Antonio, Texas San Antonio. At OU, so that means you get OU at home for conference, which is nice. But the non-con, you go to Norman. That is one that I'm sure will get enough attention, but you do have that 9:30 start time against Oregon State, so that is a game you're competing a little bit with the football team. But again, theoretically that game will be close to being over before you kick off out there in Oregon. In Corvallis. Oral Roberts in Central Arkansas rounds out the first 6 games for this team. And again, after you make that little road trip to start off the year, you only have a couple more road games. Get a lot of matches in the Neil Patterson Stadium. Hopefully all the bells and whistles are working and you can kind of feel at home. And hopefully you don't have to use the training room as much as they had to last year. My goodness, I mean, that was disappointing. I mean, and it wasn't anything that they could do about it, just kind of a rash of freak injuries, and you hope that it doesn't happen this year. Yeah,
and I know that you and I are wanting to go out there for some of those games to see how the team looks. Exciting, because it's the first sport to come back from this slog of summer. But I'm excited to see just how they get started, because that first, to me, outside of OU, and OU, I think you can beat them. It looks like these first, 6-7 games are winnable. Start the year off 7-0. Be a good start for you.
Definitely would be. They got some marquee ones. They go to University Park for Penn State. That's going to be a tough one in the non-con. SMU is always a team that you got to worry about. But this is a team that I think is going to make some noise this year. I really do, and I'm always confident with Coach Colin Carmichael. He's one of my favorite coaches that's on staff here at OSU. I think he does a phenomenal job. Love his story. Love where he's taken this program, and it's just continued to head in the right direction. So I hope that does continue this year, and I'm confident that it will. But, man, I'm excited that is under 50 days now, 48 days, and I can guarantee you August 16th at 7 p.m., you can find me, Neil Patterson Stadium, with my butt in the stands checking out Oklahoma State versus Tulsa. That should be a really good one, and really excited for soccer season, man.
Yeah, and what's that fan group they have over there?
The Orange Outlaws.
All right, hopefully they're out there full. I know last year for that OU game they were there in full attendance. They had Mike Boynton banging on the drum. Excited to see that, especially with all the fervor around the World Cup, which the women's team is playing in the semifinals against England on Tuesday. Adriana Franch is going to be there. So hopefully this fervor is transferred over to the Cowgirls.
Just a suggestion, if you hear this, if A.D. Franch hears this, if Coach Colin Carmichael hears this, if anyone at OSU hears this, it'd be a good day for to bring back A.D. to, a little pre-match against Tulsa, flash the gold medal. I don't know. I'm just saying.
That'd be great.
I'm just saying that would be definitely cool. 48 days until the sports season opens at Oklahoma State. Looking forward to it this fall as well. So, Jordan, appreciate it, man. Episode 26 in the books here, and as always, been a pleasure.
Yeah, and again, we will have a guest on next week, and then hopefully I believe we have a guest lined up after that with Jesse Martin finally, and then we'll hopefully get some soccer players.
Happy birthday, Jordan.
Appreciate it. Thanks.
Jordan Bishop's birthday weekend. Bishop birthday weekend this weekend. So if you see him out here, see him on Twitter, shoot him a message, tell him happy birthday. Appreciate it, Jordan, as always. I'm Jordan King. He's Jordan Bishop. This is the Cowgirl Coverage Podcast, episode 26 in the books on the Triple Play Sports Podcast Network.